Ciao a tutti, mi chiamo Charlotte e oggi vi parlo di 5 di più, 5 principi di base per meglio capire l'italiano, ok? I nomi. Oggi concentriamo sui nomi, ok? So, today we're going to look at 5 extra or 5 further basic principles to help you better understand Italian, and we're concentrating on nouns, so things, objects, something which is an idea, an element, something tangible, something not necessarily tangible. It depends. Let me give you some examples. La pena, so a pen is a thing. La donna, the woman, the lady. Il ragazzo, the boy. Il letto, the bed. But you can also have things like l'amore. Amore on its own without the article. Amore is love. Aria, the air. La luce. La voce, light, a voice. So things that are not necessarily palpable, tangible, physical things. Some things can be concepts, but they're all nouns. So in the handout for my Italian Club members, there's actually a whole paragraph, which is an explanation of this first point that I'm going to make in a moment, and that underlines all the nouns in the paragraph, just to help you see what they are. So here are some examples in English. It may be a strange concept to speakers of English, but as in many languages, Italian nouns are either masculine or feminine. This is known as the gender of the noun. So the first point we're going to look at in my 5 principles is that Italian nouns all have a gender. They are either masculine, maschile, or they're feminine, femminile. Okay, but in that sentence on this handout, here are some of the nouns in the first sentence. Okay, it's a long sentence. It may be a strange concept to speakers, that's a plural noun, it's got an S at the end, of English. English is the language, but as in many languages, the word languages is plural, but it's a noun. Italian nouns, the word nouns is a plural noun, are either masculine or feminine. This is known as the gender, that's a noun, of the noun. Again, the word noun. So here we've got some useful words. So gender in Italian, il genere. Noun, il nome. Language, la lingua. Okay. There's also a slightly different word if you're talking about like the content of language itself. Il linguaggio, as opposed to a designated language like French, English, Italian. So there's 2 different words for that. Incidentally, la lingua is a feminine noun, but il linguaggio is a masculine noun. The main point is you've got 2 types of gender. In Italian, there's no neutral or neuter kind of gender as there may be in other languages. Maschile or femminile. So let's have a look at this little board, because this is just a generic kind of thing that you should know. If you haven't sort of come across this already, then at least this will help you going forward when you're looking at the other things that we're going to look at today. So, very generic kind of way of looking at things. Masculine nouns such as, and these are singular nouns, just one of the thing. Panino. Okay, that means a sandwich. Or documento. Document, or ragazzo, that means boy. They all end in O. They're masculine nouns. There may not be any rhyme or reason for why they're masculine, they just are. However, when you come to talking about, say, a boy or a man or an uncle, then those, you're talking about people, and those people have a sex, a gender. They are male, so therefore the word to describe them tends to be male, ending in an O. There are some exceptions, we'll see a few. For example, padre is, or madre, for example, father and mother end with an E. They just do. Padre is still a masculine word, madre is still a feminine word. There are some exceptions. But otherwise, if they're masculine, if they're male people or animals even, they'll have an O at the end. So here's another example. Gatto, gatto. Bear in mind, for everything I'm saying here, there's always exceptions. And if you're a member of my club, I'll send you some links to some good articles or further lessons you can do online where you see these exceptions looked at in more detail. Okay? Gatto, a male cat. So if we looked at, for example, these two here, these work quite nicely. Ragazzo is a boy, or just boy, because we haven't looked at the article the or a yet. The word for girl looks quite similar, but instead of an O at the end, it has an A. Ragazza. Okay, let me just separate these. This also works quite nicely for gatto, which is a male cat. Put that in the feminine, we're talking about a female cat now. Gatta. Il gatto, la gatta. Un gatto, una gatta. Okay, that works quite nicely. Let's think of something else. Oh, una penna. So it's la penna. Penna is written with an A at the end. Okay, so that's often the case with nouns that are masculine, as an O at the end, or nouns that are feminine, singular nouns, talking about one of something. A, o, 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 o. So the way you pronounce those in Italian are o and a. Ragazza, gatta, penna, panino, documento. It's an O sound, like English language speakers might say hot with an O. So it's not pronounced O. It's more of an O sound, like in the word hot. Okay? Panino. And it's quite short too, it's a short little vowel. Ragazza. Right, let's look at some exceptions. So, aside from masculine, nouns tend to have an O at the end in the singular, feminine tends to have an A at the end in the singular. There's some exceptions. Oh, scusa. Some of them end with an E, right? So I mentioned a couple. I mentioned, for example, padre and madre. So, padre, and madre, padre, madre. Okay, let's think of some other ones. Oh, here's one. So you just have to know that that's masculine and that's feminine. That's the point really with exceptions, unless you learn some little cheats like certain words with certain endings tend to be masculine or feminine. You just have to kind of learn them, memorize them. You could, as soon as you come across a new word, you could write it down several times. Oh, I think there's a storm outside now. I just heard there's a serious wind and rain going on, I think, outside. So you just have to know the gender of them. Some of them are obvious, but some of them not so much. So the good one that I wanted to mention was bicchiere. So that's a noun that ends with an E. Bicchiere, which means a glass. Another one which is, oh, and this is masculine. That's a masculine noun. Another one that's masculine that's popular. Ristorante. Il ristorante. Un ristorante. Okay, it's a masculine noun. Masculine. So, padre, bicchiere, ristorante, all masculine, but they end with not an O, as you might expect, but an E. Okay, let's find some feminine ones that end with E. We've already got madre. Let's have a think of another one. Okay, notte. Notte. This is a good one, and I'll have to remember, if I can, this one down there. I'll just write it down in number 5. So, notte. Think of when you say buonanotte. Buonanotte. When you say goodbye, you leave the place, you say, maybe, if it's in the evening, obviously, you say good night. Good night. So the word night is notte. What's just cropped up into my mind? Notte is feminine. Buona is the adjective that describes night. So it agrees, it's a feminine adjective. Instead of buono or buon, we have buona, because that agrees with the feminine noun, the gender of the noun, notte. Now what I was thinking is, Lady and the Tramp, Disney film, there's a song. This is a night, it's a beautiful night, and they call it Bella Notte. Bella Notte. Bella. So if you can remember that film and that song and the title Bella Notte, you'll remember that la at the end of Bella is the adjective that agrees with notte. Notte ends with an E, unlike ragazza or pena, insalata, macchina. Any of these, nouns that normally have an A at the end, they're kind of common, but there are quite a lot which end with an E. Sometimes they're masculine, sometimes they're feminine. We're not going to look at how you form plural nouns because the ending changes, okay? However, just as a heads up, since all these words end with an E in the singular, I'll let you know that they all end with an I in the plural. That's mentioned on my handout, but it also says we'll look at plural nouns un'altra volta, okay, another time, because you could just spend so long on nouns on their own. So what we've got are masculine and point one, masculine and feminine nouns. All nouns have a gender, either masculine or feminine. Masculine nouns tend to end with an O in the singular. Feminine nouns tend to end with an A in the singular. However, there are exceptions. One exception is nouns that end with an E. They could be masculine or feminine. You just have to know. Okay, let's have a look. Another exception. Okay, so here's an exception. The word problem. This is a good one to know. Problem is problema, but it's masculine. Il problema. Scusa. Il problema. What was I thinking? La. There are some feminine nouns that have an O at the end, so it's completely the contrary. So let me write those down before I forget them, and I'll just pop a board pen. Is that board pen? Yes. Il problema. Il problema. Oh, that's very unusual, isn't it? But it's such a common word that you need to know it. Okay. Problema non si dice. What was the other one? La mano, for example. La mano. Il problema, la mano. Don't worry about any other exceptions that, don't have the ending you expect at the moment, unless I can think of any that's very easy to. Okay, now here's another one worth mentioning. So, for example, okay, la radio. La radio. So, la radio or la moto. La moto, like a motorbike. La moto. So these are a little bit different in that these have been kind of abbreviated. They've been shortened down. So la radio is a la. Una radio is a feminine noun, even though it's got an O at the end, because it was radiografia. Okay, there's like a, just check the radiografia. See, just think it, radiograph, radio, that's the word I think. Moto, la moto, looks like it should be il moto, but it's short for moto bicicletta. So bicicletta is a feminine noun, moto, motorbike. We just shorten it down to moto. Like, what would we say? I guess we just say motorbike. But we shorten bicycle down to bike in English, so it's a similar thing. So, exceptions. Words that end in E could be masculine or feminine. Some masculine nouns, not that many of them. Il problema doesn't end with an O, as you'd expect, it ends with an A. On the contrary, some common feminine nouns end with an O. La mano, lots of weird exceptions to what you'd expect for nouns and their genders to do with the body. So, one to sort of look at, you know, and double check if you have to talk about sort of an injury or something. La radio, la moto. It looks like they should be masculine nouns when you look at them on their own. There's an O at the end, but they're short for something else which ends in an A. Okay, so that's exceptions. Oh, there's loads of them, but there's some to have a little think about. Okay, now, so when you start getting to grips with gender, OA, exceptions, the rule of the ending, then you can start looking at articles. Now, articles are the way that you say a or the. So we're going to start off with how you use the indefinite articles. Okay, so and I always have to double check definite, indefinite, which is which, you know. So the indefinite ones are how you say one or a something. So I shall show you what is available to my club members here. So here we've got a little table of that, and we've got 4 options in terms of ways to say a or one of something. So I'm going to write just here those in a blue pen. C. Okay, so here are your articles. We have un. Un would come in front of a generic masculine noun. So let's take one. Un panino. That means a sandwich or one sandwich. Okay? Un documento, un ragazzo, un letto. Think of a masculine noun in Italian. If it ends with O, stick un in front of it, and suddenly you're saying a such and such or one such and such. Okay? Now there's this other article which you hear now and then, but maybe you don't know why it's there. What's the difference? And that's uno. So uno is also the number 1. Uno, due, tre, quattro, cinque, etc. But when you're talking about a something that's masculine in Italian, sometimes you'll hear uno instead of un. Okay? So un is probably the most common you'll see in front of a masculine noun. Uno, however, comes in front of masculine nouns that start with either a Y or a Z or an S plus a consonant. So let me see if I missed anything out there. Oh, or with PS. Okay, so let's think of a few examples. Uno studente. That's a good one. Uno studente. Check that out. What we have here is we've got a noun that's masculine that starts with S plus a consonant, S and a T, or it could be S and P, like uno sport, for example, and it ends as well with an E, like we were talking about up here, padre, bicchiere, ristorante. So this is a masculine noun that ends with an E, but because it's got an S and a T at the beginning, it's a common one that doesn't use un as its indefinite article. It uses uno. So let's have a look at another example. Words that begin with Y, there aren't that many of them in Italian, so yogurt is one. Uno yogurt. Words that begin with Z, like zaino, the word for backpack. Uno zaino. Okay? So that's why you sometimes see uno followed by a masculine thing. Okay? But normally you'll see un. Now, if you can identify a noun, or you know a noun is feminine, and you need to say a feminine thing, or one plus whatever the feminine noun is, then you simply use una, okay? Una. So these are masculine, and una is a feminine. So let's think of something. Una mela. Una bella mela. Nice apple. Lovely. A little bit small though actually, but una mela. Una penna. Una macchina. That's a car. So una, let's think of something different, something a bit different. Let's go for mela. Una mela. Incidentally, most fruits tend to be feminine nouns, but not always, okay? So there's a great lesson on the learnamo.com about nouns, and if I remember I'll put it in the description as a link so you can go and do some further research. Una mela. Sometimes, however, you see un apostrofo, okay? So you see un and an apostrophe like this. Why do you tend to see apostrophes? Why? It's because whatever follows starts with a vowel. So the examples I've got on my sheet are un'ora. That's a useful one because it means 1 hour. Or it might mean an hour. It takes an hour to get somewhere. It takes 1 hour. So an hour, 1 hour, basically the same thing in English. And it's the same, it's just one word in Italian. Whereas in English we'd say an. And interestingly, you would add the N in English. Like, is that called sonif? There's a word for it. There's a lovely word. Sonicesio? No. There's a word when you put in a letter. You add a letter in to make it easier to hear and pronounce. So in English we would say an apple, and we add the N in. Okay. In Italian, however, you take the A off. Una. Not for an apple, for una ora becomes un'ora. Makes it easier to say, rather than having a vowel then another vowel. Un'ora. So when you hear un'ora, you might think it's a bit like un in front of a masculine singular noun. It does sound like that, but the word ora ends with an A, so you think, feminine word that's got un in front of it. It starts with a vowel, that's why, okay? Let's think of another one. Un'attività. Okay, this is a good one. And the reason I like this one, attività, is because of that little kind of grave accent over the A. Eccolo qua. Attività, yes, 2 T's. You see that quite a lot in Italian. There's equivalents in like Spanish, I think it's let's think of libertad. Is it? It's like a D-A-D ending, I think. In French, it's like an E accent, aigu, so it's like an accent that goes up over the E, like liberté, libertà in Italian, activité, attività. So you put an emphasis, like a clipped emphasis on that A, and those words that end in that ita, they tend to be feminine. You can kind of guess them between languages too. If you speak a few like Romance languages or English, you'll probably be able to guess words that have a similar ending, how you say them in Italian. So that one happens to start with an A. So it's a feminine word, but it's got this un apostrofo in front of it, so that you don't have to say una attività and then over enunciate the A at the end of una, followed by the A in attività. So they're definite articles. So let me say a couple of nouns, and you have to have a think about what you think their article is. So this is ascoltate, this is just a listening exercise. Okay, so here's one. Bicicletta. Bicicletta. Is it going to be un, uno, una, or un apostrofo? Bicicletta. Una bicicletta. If you're really clever, you'll remember that I said moto bicicletta is a feminine noun, and it's because bicicletta is feminine. It ends with an A. So let me write that down for you. Una bicicletta. Così. Una bicicletta. That's a nice regular one. Okay. What about... Oh, here's one. Scrittore. Scrittore. What does that mean? Scrittore. Just wrote out my articles. Scrittore. Incidentally, words that end with ore, like attore, scrittore, professore, dottore, they tend to be masculine. And they also have feminine versions with a slightly different suffix, but that's another video. So, scrittore tells you that we're talking about a person who is masculine, and it's a profession. So let me just write this down. So scrittore. So this noun is derived from the verb scrivere, as its equivalent in English is. So scrivere means to write, and scrittore means a writer. Okay, so a male writer, as it happens. So it's masculine. So is it going to be un or uno scrittore? It's uno. But why is it uno? Uno scrittore. Because it's a masculine noun. I know that because ore at the end is the sort of ending that you get for male professions. And I have also noticed that it starts with an S, and then it's followed by the consonant C. Sk. And then it's got an R. Scri. The R's in, no, it doesn't matter, but the S was a consonant, and the masculine ending tells me that it's an uno. Uno scrittore. Interesting. So, let's have a look at one. Ooh, now this is a little bit cheeky of me, because I haven't mentioned before, but I'll explain now. So, there are certain endings on words that give you like a clue about their gender, okay? And one of them is the attività, the ita ending with the little accent there. They tend to be feminine. Words that end in ore or tore tend to, like scrittore, dottore, tend to be masculine. Words that end with isione, like televisione, per esempio, they tend to be feminine, okay? Televisione. Pen's running out there. So it's a feminine word. La televisione. Una televisione. So it's this one. Una televisione. There was... Oh, another one that I wanted to mention. Not exactly the same sound ending, but similar. And that's words that end with zione. So instead of S-I-O-N-E, these words end with Z-I-O-N-E, and they also tend to be feminine as well. So, sto cercando una penna che funziona. Azione. So, in fact, that's a good one. That's a good one. So here we've got televisione, una televisione, this one. But the one underneath, azione, also feminine, we would have un azione, because the feminine noun starts with a vowel. It's easier to say than una azione, un'azione, okay? Una televisione, uno scrittore, un angelo, it's an angel, un panino, un documento, un dottore, etc. So, they are, I have to check, indefinite articles. So the way you say a doctor, a girl, an apple, one bed, one house. Okay, all of those are either going to be un, uno, una, un apostrofo. That's an apostrophe. So once you've kind of got used to those, and when you use them, and that takes a while, okay, don't be too hard on yourself if you can't follow all of that quickly. It takes practice as well. You can start to understand the next thing. So the next thing are definite articles. I'm going to come down here a little bit. I'm going to zoom out. Ecco qua. So this is the bit. So these are the Italian ways of saying what we would say as the or the in English, okay? So you'll probably know a few of them. Let's start off with regular masculine nouns. So what do we have? Documento. Un documento is il documento, the document. Un panino, a sandwich, becomes il panino. Okay? Lovely. What if we have a masculine word that begins with a vowel, like this one? Uomo. Uomo. So this is a useful masculine word. It means man. But we want to not say just man, we want to say the man. So il plus uomo is difficult to say. Il uomo, il uomo. Okay, it's not that difficult, but Italians put an L apostrophe. L'uomo, l'uomo. L'angelo, the angel. So you have either il or L apostrophe followed by a masculine noun that starts with a vowel. There's another one. There's also lo. Lo. Okay, so we can have il, or you can have L apostrophe, or you can have lo. For example, let's think of a word. Lo studio. Lo studio. So that could be like study. The study of something. Lo stadio. That's another one. Very similar. That means stadium. So can you see what's happening here? We've got two masculine nouns. They don't have il, they don't have L apostrophe, they start with lo. And this is why. Because they start with an S plus a consonant. Okay? Another word that starts with an S plus a consonant, studente. That's a masculine noun. Studente. Lo studente. The student. The male student, as it happens. The feminine would be studentessa, with an essa suffix at the end. Studente, lo studente. Lo sport. Lo yogurt. So words that would be uno instead of un would be lo instead of il. Okay, that's how it works. Now they're the masculine ones. So the feminine ones, a little bit easier. So instead of il, we have la. La donna, la ragazza, la mela, la musica, l'aria. L'aria, that's one. So l'aria, or it could be talking about an aria if you're into singing or opera. That's a feminine noun, starts with a vowel, L apostrophe, just like in the masculine. Ooh, it's quite a lot to take in this video, isn't it? But that's okay. You can always send me questions or comments under the video if it's useful or if something's not clear. But these are basic principles. There's so much entailed in language acquisition. I can't possibly put it all in one little video. I could speak about it for hours though, so if you're interested, remember you can join my Italian club and you'll get a monthly handout like this, direct to your email, along with the video link, and in the handout you'll get more activities, there's more detail, you can keep it in a little pack, and it just comes straight to you so that you can watch it and learn whenever you like, and reach out to me with your comments, of course. So let's see, the next part is adjectives. So when you know that you use masculine or feminine nouns, that there's exceptions, the ending might change if it's an exception to the OA rule, and when you've got used to un, una, un apostrofo and uno, and then once you've linked all of those indefinite articles with the definite ones, il, lo, L apostrophe and la, then you can start to realise how the gender of the noun affects language elsewhere in, say, a sentence or a phrase. So I mentioned that notte was a feminine noun. So when you think of that song, bella notte, the adjective bella is its feminine form. It means beautiful, okay, or wonderful, lovely. So let's go down here and zoom out a little bit. And let me show you. So I've written notte down there to remind myself. Bella notte. Bella donna. bella ragazza, bella musica. So normally an adjective will come after the noun, but certain adjectives, that words that describe a noun, beautiful, lovely, small, thin, fat, ugly, boring, interesting, difficult, all of those words, in English they come before the noun. That's a difficult book. That's an interesting story. That's a beautiful man. Those kind of things. In Italian they tend to come afterwards, but with certain common adjectives like buono, bello, or its variations, bella, I can't think of any others, but there's a whole list of them. You can place them before the noun, and in some cases the placement of the adjective before the noun rather than after it can change the meaning slightly. However, as a rule of thumb, the adjective goes after the noun, okay? So, let's see. Bella notte. La notte è bella. So that's one way of doing that. Let's see. Just go down here. La notte, because we know notte is a feminine noun. La is the definite article that goes in front of it. È, that's just the verb essere, the third person, he, she, or it. So I want to say it's beautiful, it's lovely. Instead of bello, with an O at the end, I would say bella. If I wanted to say the man is handsome, I would use l'uomo, because uomo starts with a U, but it's a masculine noun, so I have to put L apostrophe in front of it. So that bit doesn't change. That's just the verb. As long as it's in the third person, he, she, or it is, then it's fine, it doesn't change. It's the adjective that follows that agrees with the gender of the noun, okay? So I wouldn't say bella for a guy, I'd say bello. L'uomo è bello. Il documento è... Now, I almost went into an exception of the adjectives. But since I was going to say it, it's a bit similar to when you have nouns, things that end with an E in the singular. There's also adjectives that end in an E. In fact, I do mention it, looking at this. I do mention them in my handout, so anyone who's going to get my club handout is going to see this, but I'm going to give other viewers just one little word. So you could use an adjective that ends with an E in the singular, okay? Generally they end with an O or an A, like the nouns do, and you have to agree them with the noun. But sometimes you use an adjective that doesn't change. So let me give you an example. La storia, the story. It also means history, so I could be talking about history. La storia è interessante. La storia è interessante. Interessante already has an E at the end. That adjective there can be used in that form without changing, whether you're talking about something that's a la storia, like a la noun, a feminine noun, or whether it's a masculine noun. So let me show you. La storia interessante, lo sport è interessante. What else could we use? Il libro è interessante. Interessante. Eccolo. Is there another one? La televisione, no. No, we'll just stick with that. So we've got 3 nouns, and there's one. La storia, that's feminine. Then we've got lo sport, which starts, it's masculine, but it starts with an S plus a P. So it's one of those uno sport, lo sport, instead of the regular il. And then we've got il libro, that's also masculine. And where's my light? But you can say interessante for all of them. Otherwise, you'll probably have an adjective that has an O or an A at the end, depending upon the respective gender of the nouns. So let's try and summarise. E poi basta. Let's go back up. So the main points are, number 1, all nouns in Italian have a gender. Okay, we're specifically looking at singular nouns where we talk about one of them. Masculine nouns tend to end with an O, pronounced O. Feminine nouns tend to finish with an E, pronounced A, generally. However, there's exceptions, which is point 2. For example, lots of nouns, whether masculine or feminine, end with E. In un esempio, il ristorante, maschile. La colazione, there's another azione word, that means breakfast. La colazione, scusa, breakfast or lunch? Prima colazione, lunch. Prima colazione, oh no, scusa, breakfast. And then, so they're the exceptions. Then you get some male nouns like il problema, they end with an A. Or some feminine nouns that end with an O, like la mano. Some, like la radio, which are abbreviations of longer words. So they end in an O in their common use, but it's just because it's a short form. In the long form, they've got an A at the end. La radio is la radiografia. Once you get to grips with all of those, you can start looking at indefinite articles like un, una, uno, and un apostrofo. Once you get to know those, you can look at the definite articles il, lo, l apostrophe, and la. Okay, and then after that, you can start to see where adjectives agree with the gender of the noun. So there you go. And I think what I shall do is I shall just send this over to club members now, invite you to leave any messages underneath. If you want to join the club, please feel free. That would be great to hear from you. All the contact details are below. Feel free to get in touch. And grazie mille e buon fine settimana. Grazie, ciao!